Morgan's own church leaders could also use that Bible verse against her. They could watch her YouTube videos and say, hey girl, a woman is meek and gentle in spirit.
Wanna tell me?
You need to lower your voice. Women in my church were told this, and it was hurtful because they were made to be something different. Hi, beautiful people. First and foremost, I want to address the most obvious fact. We are all... I'm outside shooting just to give my family a little space and to be out in the fresh air. And I want to know, how are you feeling? Because on my healthiest, best days, I'm like, wow, what a privilege and honor to have all this undivided time and attention to put into my newborn baby. And other times I'm like, this is fine. And I have to thank the God is Great community from the bottom of my heart. Many of you know that YouTube is not really a sustainable income for a lot of us, especially when we're talking about sex and all these salacious subjects. All of you that are supporting God is Great on Patreon, I cannot thank you enough. I honestly have no idea where I'd be without you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm doing my best to shop at local restaurants, to get coffee from local places, anything I can do to support my community. I know that a lot of us are experiencing this macro level trauma where we're worried about people losing homes, people losing livelihoods and businesses, people losing family members or getting sick. Those are the things touching us universally on this global scale. Then there's also loss on a micro level for each of us. Maybe you were looking forward to prom your entire high school career, and all of a sudden that's no longer happening. The humility to look at other people's pain and realize, you know what, they have it worse than me, I don't have it so bad, that is a positive thing, and that is a beautiful attitude to take. However, I want to remind you that you're not only allowed to, but it is important to address whatever it is you may be feeling. Maybe the prom is not a big deal. Maybe it was a really big deal to you. In Christianity, we're often taught to pray away our fears and our disappointment. And then if the pain or fear doesn't flee, then it's because of our lack of faith. We didn't pray hard enough. We didn't trust God enough. This is not the way God sees our emotional well-being and our lives. Ecclesiastes 3:1-11 says, "For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance." In Ecclesiastes, the author is acknowledging that life is a roller coaster. If you shove those things down, those things that are hurting you, that you do have to mourn, they will sit in there. They'll continue to hurt you. So let them out there. That'll be the excavation of your spirit. And from there, I encourage embodiment. This is realizing your body is going to be feeling everything in this moment as well. Whatever happens to you emotionally, feeling that claustrophobia, feeling tired of the people you're around, or exhausted by not working, that's the moment to bring your body into it. Go out and run around the block. Go and have a dance party in your bedroom all by yourself. God calls us to honor our bodies, and this is an opportunity to do so. And the honoring of our bodies includes recognizing our emotions and working through them as they come up. All that said, I do want to talk about something quite heavy today. So when I first caught wind of this Jaclyn Glenn, Paul and Morgan drama, my initial thought was, no, I am not touching that with a 40-foot pole. All of them can talk about this. I am staying out of it. But as I watch the back and forth, I realize that this is actually a good opportunity to address this thing that's been weighing so heavily on me, and that is the subject of abuse. There is abuse, both physical and emotional, in secular homes, of course, right? But when abuse is religiously motivated or biblically justified, that can be so difficult, because the abuser is not saying, hey, I'm doing this to you. The abuser is saying, I'm doing this to you because God permits me to. There are two particular forms of abuse that are religiously motivated, religiously justified, that I want to talk about today. The first, of course, is LGBTQ children, teens, young adults trapped in non-affirming households. So today I have a very important podcast for any of you in that situation. As a preteen, Nate Postlethwait was manipulated into a relationship with a much older predator, and his church's response was that he had to repent for his his, quote, sin of homosexuality. From there, Nate endured over a decade of gay conversion therapy, which led to extreme overeating, self-hatred, and suicidal ideation. But now, Nate is a life coach and survivor, walking alongside others towards their healing. If you are an LGBTQ person trapped in a household with people that tell you you are a sinner, that you are inherently wrong for the way that you are, the way God made you, I want to make sure that God is Grey is providing resources for you. I love you. The God is Grey community loves you, and I affirm you as an LGBTQ person. Please search the God is Grey podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, and more for this touching conversation with Nate Postlethwait. I will also link below information on how to contact the Trevor Project, Freedhearts, Kevin Garcia, and more in case you need to reach out to people who will help you through this time. That said, our focus today is going to be on the second form of abuse. Wives or girlfriends being manipulated or abused due to Ephesians 5:22. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. My brother actually brought up a great point to me today, which is that 50 years ago, even 20 years ago, people would raise a hand to their child, backhand them, and it was socially acceptable. In religious communities, that sort of behavior was justified, again, by Bible verses. Proverbs 13:24. He who spares the rod hates his son, but the one who loves their children is careful to discipline them. Marital rape wasn't even criminalized until 1993. Nowadays, we recognize the clear harm of physical abuse, but there are still Christians out there that are promoting these ideas and letting these abusive behaviors linger, like the transformed wife.
One woman wrote me and asked me if her husband had raped her because she had told him she didn't want to have sex. She woke up in the middle of the night, he was having sex with her. So she wanted to know if that was marital rape. True rape is when you're assaulted against your will by some stranger.
And biblical gender roles, which is so off base, it's not even worth my breath. Moving on. Thank God that our society, and for the most part, our churches, no longer accept this. That's called the Holy Spirit moving the church forward. But the next beast to slay is our inaccurate representations of male-female dynamics and the way we're still misinterpreting Ephesians 5:22. And this all ties into the Jaclyn Glenn, Paul and Morgan drama. Here is the tea. Jaclyn released a video called Morgan Needs Help, Why Paul is Toxic. And Morgan released a response. Watching both these videos gave me anxiety, to be honest. I was kind of absentmindedly making dinner, watching Jaclyn's video, and I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. She's making a pretty interesting case for her point.
Happens to you. God, she's so good.
Might, not by power.
Why does she put on this ridiculous act? That is not her. She is musically talented. I hide that.
I wasn't deeply concerned because Jaclyn didn't make me worry for her well-being or her safety. Personally, I see Morgan as a very strong-willed, tenacious woman. So I continue making mashed potatoes and salmon and I move on. Then, being quarantined, away from human contact, it takes me a minute to realize, wait, this is all online and now it looks like Morgan is hurt.
Hey guys, it's Morgan.
I love Jaclyn. Y'all know we are friends. But the question became, should she have put her suspicions on blast for everyone to see? Or should she have reached out to Morgan one-on-one? My first thought was, yes, definitely. She should have just reached out to Morgan. But Jaclyn made a final video to explain why she said this publicly.
Morgan responded to my last video.
I mean, hashtag pray for Jaclyn.
Okay, the first thing to note is that Morgan kept using the word abuse, saying Jaclyn was accusing Paul of abusing her, but Jaclyn never used that word.
She thinks that I'm in an abusive relationship.
Did I ever once in my video even use the word abusive?
Jaclyn also pointed out that people in controlling relationships often have their emails, their text messages, their phone calls screened by their controlling partner.
The likelihood of the message reaching you and only you is low. And if it did, like I said before, the amount of brainwashing and manipulation that you've already gone through to get to this point would not make my message even remotely have a chance of being successful.
Gaslighting is real. You might know you're unhappy, that you're feeling distant from your friends. You might not even recognize why. When I was in an abusive relationship, my neighbor right over there confronted me and said, look, I don't know you, but you are in an abusive relationship. I was disgusted by that. I was defensive. I was like, how dare someone that doesn't know me judge my relationship? But my neighbor was right. And that part I said about Morgan being strong and tenacious was not to imply that you're weak if you end up in an abusive situation. I too was strong and tenacious, but there I was, being gaslit, being hurt. Abusers do not slap you across the face on a first date. My ex had built up to his level of abuse so slowly that I didn't even recognize it until I was out of it. All said, this is my personal story. And frankly, I'm jealous that Morgan offered to be friends with Jaclyn.
If you want to sit down and get coffee and actually talk one-on-one, I'm down.
I've been wanting to connect with people of different points of view for a long time. However, not everyone can or should be friends. Their evangelical Christianity has taught them that they cannot affirm LGBTQ people.
The Bible makes it very clear homosexuality, LGBTQ+, is a sin.
No more of this sitting idly by while our friends and loved ones are walking in this sin.
And non-affirming people are dangerous to the LGBTQ community.
I cannot tell you how many very close friends of mine throughout my life have been so depressed to the point of even considering taking their own lives because of the lack of acceptance they got for their lifestyle from the religious community.
I know what Paul and Morgan have been taught. I was taught the exact same thing. But now in 2020, with all of these people writing books, theological, biblically based books on how to affirm LGBTQ Christians, there is no longer an excuse to just listen to your pastor, pluck 5 or 6 Bible verses out of context, and just decide, I can't affirm, closed case. Paul technically agrees with me here on our diving into theology and figuring out what's false and true.
2 Timothy, it says to study the word so that you might show yourself approved.
But herein lies the main problem. In a lot of Christian circles, we are not properly taught how to read or discern this ancient text. From Jaclyn's video, there are 2 points of toxic doctrine that I would like to point out. One, Jaclyn wonders if Paul supported Morgan in her singing career. And y'all, Morgan is a brilliant singer. She's vibrant and captivating. I love these old videos of her. But in certain churches, people are steered away from secular careers and told that if they have a talent that's creative, they need to just pour all of that into a spiritual career. Hollywood is vilified as demonic, and I truly don't know if that is what's happened here, or if Morgan genuinely wanted to wash her hands clean and no longer pursue a career in secular music. One thing Morgan is open about is that she doesn't really love Christian music.
She's always loved Christian
No,
music.
I haven't.
Girl, I am with you.
It's been cheesy and weird and goofy.
When I was in youth group, my pastors told me that to honor God, I had to throw all of my secular music into the garbage. I tried for years to force myself to listen to Christian music. Didn't resonate with me.
Not like a movement.
And in this clip, Jaclyn was concerned that Paul seems to be policing what Morgan is listening to.
We start dating and I see her, singing this music. I had to question, what's going on here? What's her heart behind it? I'll admit, it was a little bit tough for me.
Music is clearly important to her. It is important to me too. And for any of you that have felt this weight or this stress or anxiety about enjoying the music that really resonates with you, I'm gonna do a whole video about what we as Christians should and should not be ingesting as far as entertainment goes with television shows, music, etc. Because what we've been taught is sin is not as black and white as secular music bad, Christian music good. As a matter of fact, sometimes the truth can be reversed or gray. The most concerning thing Jaclyn wonders is if Morgan is carrying the weight of regret too heavily.
And still to this day, I am coming out of sin or struggles that I have dealt with and having to really discipline myself.
But my thing is, I tend to truly believe him when he says,
I'm seeing how she's doing. I'm being caring.
because in my churches, when women were vivacious or had leadership tendencies, they were often shamed for their personalities. We were told, 1 Peter 3:4, an honorable woman is of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. Thank God, Paul does not seem to use that verse against Morgan at all.
Wanna tell me?
Baby girl is not meek or quiet. But the point I'm making is that Paul could use 1 Peter 3:4 against Morgan if he so desired. This is what toxic theology is. When human beings in their finite minds pluck Bible verses out of context and use them to subjugate or manipulate others. Morgan's own church leaders could also use that Bible verse against her. They could watch her YouTube videos and say, "Hey girl, a woman is meek and gentle in spirit. You need to lower your voice." Women in my church were told this. It's not always the individual, but the whole of this patriarchal system that suppresses people. And when we align with a person that is willing to take that on and use the Bible to suppress us further, it can lead to a very manipulative, if not outright abusive relationship.
It really does break down your self-worth and your self-esteem to be told that this is a sin and that's a sin and you are a bad person unless you become like me.
All I know is that I myself had to suppress pieces of my personality that happened to be the ones that made my heart sing. It hurts people to the core of their soul, and that goes for all sexes. And that's it. I love you all so much. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends, donate to my Patreon or Venmo if you can. I love you all. God bless.
Pray for Jaclyn.